This chapter is entirely about pest-proofing the garden you're setting up for backyard abundance. To pest-proof it most of all, I think people need to keep out deer, they need to keep out rabbits. A few other things may come and go depending on where you are. We will come to another part of pest-proofing later that will relate to rabbits and birds specifically in your garden. But for now, that's what we want to talk about, especially what you see behind me here, which is a 2-meter tall deer fence that'll also keep out rabbits at the ground level. So that's what we're going to talk about right now, and the supplies you'll need to get that going. Okay, so for deer proofing the fence, just a simple little list of things you need to accumulate to build a fence. Now remember, the total perimeter of this backyard abundance, it's about 6 or 7 paces on each side, so 6 or 7 meters on each side, which works out to being a bit over 30 meters or around 100 feet. That's intentional because we think it's a bit bigger than about 2 parking spaces or a backyard patio. Many people with property have this much, which is less than 1% of an acre. Also, when you go to buy deer fencing, and keep in mind this black poly is double, so when I unroll it, it's actually twice as long as it is right here. It's 2 meters tall, and it's sufficient to keep a deer out as long as you have it tall enough, because the deer are very good high jumpers, right? That 100-foot roll or 30-meter roll is under $100 where I live, so you can do the whole perimeter of the actual fencing material for $100, and all the other parts and pieces only cost you about $20 or $30 more. So it's being held up with small fence posts, which actually in my area sell at the lumber store as garden stakes. You see how small that is? It's only 2 to 2.5 inches, about 5 or 6 centimeters across. So it's very thin, they're very easy to hit in. You'll need a sledgehammer or a heavy handheld hammer, and possibly a ladder to get up on. So I'm putting one of these tree stakes or thin fence posts at each corner, and then one mid-span between the corners. And running on top of each of the fence posts is a piece of bare wire. Now, I don't mean bare like rawr. I mean bare as in it's not barbed wire, it's smooth, and it's galvanized. It's quite thin gauge, but it's strong enough to hold up this lightweight fencing. And if you kind of weave it in and out through the top of the fencing material, and then you go on top of your ladder to the top of your fence post, just use a little fencing staple like that, okay? A little U-shaped fencing staple. That holds down the wire, you bend the wire back on itself, and it basically puts the deer fencing up like a shower curtain with the wire running through the top of the deer fencing. So for about $125, you can do the whole perimeter of a 30-meter garden, and it's deer proof at the top. It's over 6 feet tall, over 2 meters tall. And at the bottom, then you just take pieces of firewood, bricks, sleeping children, rocks, anything heavy and not moving, just to hold down the bottom of the material. And as I've shown as well with a lawnmower a little later on, you try to set your fence just a little bit inside to your cardboard and chips so that you can run a lawnmower around if you need to. And then you can cut the grass without catching the bottom of the fencing material, and you create an exposed clear area that probably a rabbit's not going to want to be caught sitting there trying to nibble through the fencing. If the deer can jump over it, you'll just have to put extensions or taller posts on and do it a little taller. But for where I live, the deer are actually quite small, and they don't jump over 2 meters tall, so it'll be deer proof. So here we go. Let's just build another piece of this fencing so you can see what's involved. Very simple. Posts at the corner and in the middle, wire across the top holding up the fencing, staple it down. Use the shower curtain idea when you get to a doorway and you got a way in and out of your garden. As long as deer can't figure out how to stand on their hooves like a Gary Larson Far Side cartoon and open it up, you're good to go. So I've measured off my existing fence line that already has fencing up to make sure that it's a square with, you know, fairly right angles. I'm not looking for perfection, but it needs to look sexy. And I've positioned this tree stake or thin fence post where I want it to be. So that's where I want to put it right there, and it's just inside the cardboard. Now keep in mind, I'm wanting to sink this 45 centimeters or about 18 inches, which isn't very much really when you start knocking it down, unless you're hitting, you know, solid rock or gravel, because I want it to be tall enough so that the fencing is going to have about an extra 15 centimeters at the ground level that I can lay out flat on the surface, preventing rabbits and such to get underneath. So that looks like a nice height. It's taller than me. And then when I've got that in place, I'm just taking one of our little handy dandy fencing staples and I'm putting it right in the top. So when you're putting the fence post in, you don't want to smash and damage the top. And I'm not going to put the staple in all the way. I'm only going to just firmly embed it so that I can connect the wire to it. Now it's ready to go and receive the wire holding up the deer fencing. So another step done. So now I'm hoping to do the mid-span post on this side of the garden. From the corner post to the other corner post, it's about 6 meters. So the 3 meter point, 10 feet, it's right in the middle. So I've positioned that right in the middle. And again, I'm well inside what's going to be the fence line so that it'll be really easy to protect. Drive it down 45 centimeters or so. And this will again receive a staple. And that's going to be the mid-span load bearing for the wire upholding the fence that goes right across. I'm actually going to be putting that on top of the wire once the wire's there because I don't want to slide it here. So I'm going to actually save that till later and put it in later. It'll make sense later on, I think, to you. If you put it in after the wire's on top, it's a little firmer way to hold it and affix it. So I'm just tapping it there so it's on site when I need it later on. So now that I've driven in my fence posts on this 6 meter stretch, I've rolled out the fencing material so that it's just a little bit longer than the fence posts are from end to end, because I don't want to have too little. I want to have a few extra centimeters. And then I'm just cutting up one line of the deer fencing material. Remember, it's folded double, so it's 1 meter that folds over as 2 meters. And we're just cruising up it like that. That's how easy it is to cut with just household scissors. Boop. So now we'll unfold the doubling, and then we can run the wire through, and we're ready to set it up on the staples at the top of the posts. I don't have a special magical way to thread this wire through the fencing. What I'm basically doing is over under every 2 squares or so. So I go through a square, over, I go under 2 squares, and I just keep on going like that. I'm a person who gets bored easily, maybe you are too. I'd say this is the most tedious part of the whole project. I was thinking, oh, it's going to take so long. Now this is a 6 meter line, and I just realized by watching the clock that it's going to take me about 7 or 8 minutes to do a 6 meter stretch. So that means all 4 sides could take 30 minutes. It's probably the single longest task of anything I'm doing here.